listen to Trump respond to Juan Merchan. He tells him face to face that his courtroom was an absolute joke and a circus, which it was and still is. He should be disbarred. And I hope Donald Trump goes after every single one of them that tried to prosecute him, his family, take away his finances. And if he didn't win that election, he would have went to prison. Donald Trump and conservatives need to stop taking the high road and go after Juan Merchan and the rest of these communists the way they went after him. Let's jump into the video.
Like to be heard.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. This has been a very terrible experience. I think it's been a tremendous setback for New York and the New York court system. This is a case that Alvin Bragg did not want to bring. He thought it was, from what I read and from what I hear, inappropriately handled before he got there. A gentleman from a law firm came in and acted as a district attorney. And that gentleman, from what I heard, was a criminal or almost criminal in what he did. It was very inappropriate. It was somebody involved with my political opponent. Part of the records that we're talking about, they're saying, I just noticed where he said I was falsifying business records. Well, the falsification of business records, as they said, was calling a legal expense in the books where everybody could see them, a legal expense. In other words, that legal fees or legal expense were put down as legal expense by accountants. They weren't put down by me. They were put down by accountants. I didn't call them construction, concrete work. I didn't call them electrical work. I didn't call them any. They called a legal fee or a legal expense a legal expense. And for this, I got indicted. It's incredible, actually. Now, if you look, my attorney alluded to it, the top legal scholars and legal pundits in this country, the ones that are quoted all the time on television, that are making their views felt and highly respected people, have said, everyone, virtually everyone that I know of, haven't seen any to the contrary, not one. And none of these people are not exactly friends of mine, to put it mildly. But they all said this is a case that should have never been brought. It's an injustice of justice. Very respected Jonathan Turley, Andy McCarthy, Judge David Rifkin, a wonderful man who just passed away, by the way, Greg Jarrett, Ellie Honig from CNN, of all places. CNN said that, Paul Ingratian, Alan Dershowitz, they all said this is not a case that should be brought. It's not, think about it, legal expenses are down as legal expenses, and I get indicted for business records. Everybody should be so accurate. It's been a political witch hunt. It was done to damage my reputation so that I'd lose the election, and obviously that didn't work. And the people of our country got to see this firsthand because they watched the case in your courtroom. They got to see this firsthand, and then they voted, and I won and got the largest number of votes by far of any Republican candidate in history, and won, as you know, all 7 swing states, won conclusively all 7 swing states, and won the popular vote by millions and millions of votes. And they've been watching your trial, so they understood it. I wasn't allowed to use the lawyer-client privilege or the reliance on counsel. I had a lawyer that made this deal, and he admitted that. And he was also a totally discredited person. We weren't allowed to use the information from the Southern District that totally discredited him. It wasn't allowed to be put in. And that was terrible, unbelievable. And this is a man who's got no standing. He's been disbarred on other matters, unrelated. And he was allowed to talk as though he were George Washington. But he's not George Washington. He shouldn't have been allowed. The Southern District did a book of approximately 28 pages where I've never seen anything like it. They excoriated him. You wouldn't let it be put into evidence. So he was able to testify as a witness, and I think it's a disgrace to the system. I was under a gag order. I'm the first president in history that was under a gag order where I couldn't talk about aspects of the case that are very important. I guess I'm still under, so probably I won't do it now. I assume I'm still under a gag order. But the fact is that I'm totally innocent. I did nothing wrong. They talked about business records, and the business records were extremely accurately counted. I had nothing to do with them. That was done by an accountant or a bookkeeper who I think gave very credible testimony and was corroborated by everybody that was asked. And with all that's happening in our country today, with the city that's burning to the ground, one of our largest, most important cities burning to the ground, with wars that are uncontrollably going on, with all of the problems of inflation and attacks on countries and all of the horrible things that are going on, I got indicted over calling a legal expense a legal expense. It was called a legal expense. I just want to say I think it's an embarrassment to New York, and New York has a lot of problems, but this is a great embarrassment. I believe that this and other cases that were brought, as you know, the DOJ is very much involved in this case. It's because that's the political opponent they're talking about. The DOJ is very involved. You have a gentleman sitting right there from the DOJ who was from the DOJ's office. He was also involved with the New York State Attorney General's case. And he went from there to here. He went around and did what he had to do. He got them to move on me. But in the meantime, I won the election in a massive landslide. And the people of this country understand what's gone on. This has been a weaponization of government. They call it lawfare. Never happened to any extent like this, but never happened in our country before. And I'd just like to explain that I was treated very, very unfairly. And I thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Trump.
Judge
Donald Trump needs to go after Juan Merchan. He's a communist piece of garbage, just like his daddy. He needs to go after his daughter. He needs to go after every single person in Merchan's family that commits crime or cooks the books. Or you know what? Better yet, Donald Trump should just make it up, just like Barack Obama, Democrats, and Juan Merchan did to him. The only way this is going to stop is if you let Democrats know that you're not going to take it. Our country has become a third world republic because Democrats have no shame. Every time I listen to a Democrat talk as if the Constitution means anything to them, I want to throw up. You are an absolute disgrace. You couldn't win fairly an election. You cheated in the 2020 election. It's without question, you cheated. And this go around, you wanted to imprison your political opponent with made up charges. So Trump's accountant wrote down in a book that they were business expenses, showed exactly what they were, and Trump gets indicted. So let's just say, hypothetically, his accountant did lie. That's why Trump pays Trump doesn't handle that. The accountant handles it. So in a normal world where people are following the law and not acting like lawless Democrats, like Barack Obama, the Clinton murderers, Joe Biden and his corrupt crime family, in a real world, even if the accountant cooked the books, the prosecutor would go after the accountant. But what do all these communist Democrats do? They use it as an excuse to go after Trump. Meanwhile, they were legitimate business transactions or, investments or expenses, whatever you want to call them. So they try to do a word salad to convict an ex-president of the United States over absolutely nothing. And every single channel with Democrats on it said the case is absolutely ridiculous. You know when all this garbage started? Under Barack Obama. Barack Obama is garbage. He sent racial relations back 200 years, making everybody get in a group. He became the president of the United States, and instead of saying, hey, this is the greatest country in the world, look at me, you can become anything that you want to as long as you work hard, he got up there and he said, how everything needs to change and the system and the white man and everything that you could think of negatively about the country, he said. And Barack Obama, he can't win that election unless the majority of Caucasianoids vote for him. So what did he do? He turned around and he took a big dump in Americans and America's face. And since that time, things have only gotten worse. I hope Trump goes after all of you. And for anybody that calls this justice, I can only pray that you're on the hot seat next, that they go after you and your family next. And the other narrative that liberals keep spinning is that this is a conviction. He's going to have to give DNA. He's going to have to do this. No, he's not. And if you gave yourself a timeout, well, number one, you're all liars. Number two, the majority of you are dumb because you operate off of emotion instead of facts and law and logic. A conditional discharge means if you stay out of trouble for a certain period of time, your case gets dismissed. It's not a conviction. But that doesn't matter to liberals. Liberalism is the most hateful ideology on the planet. Liberalism is a mental disorder. And they hate Trump for a few reasons. Biggest reason, he puts America first. And he cares about people like me, the working man, the so-called little person. He cares about us. And the elite hate that. They hate it. How do you know they hate it? We have terrorists coming across the border, known terrorists from every country in the world, and Democrats refuse to secure the border. What does that tell you? What does that tell you how they feel about American citizens? Putting everybody's life in danger. And the incident in New Orleans, that's just the tip of the iceberg. That's like child's play compared to what's coming down the pipeline for all of us. Juan Merchan, you're a communist. You and your daughter need to go to prison. Your daddy taught you well. Keep up the great work.